Well, hello. My name is Mike Stewart, and I'm running for State Senate in Tacoma's 27th District. And thank you very much for joining us in our last video drop for the sixth group here. And so the topic of this issue, and we're covering 75 total issues, is repurposed property credits. And I know there's, probably an abundance of programs that exist today. But, to me, it comes back to having the focus of, I guess, why the programs exist. And then I think part of also being elected and going in is asking, what can be folded into something that already exists and not needing to necessarily stand on its own. Sometimes that can be, quite valuable in just those decisions. But the repurposed property credits, we spoke some about kind of the homeless triangle, and that is involved in this program. It was to going to a centralized place where then services could come surround the need, get people better, and then introduce them kind of in a step up on their way out, as opposed to just straight back into the fire. And so, I kind of imagine something like a Kmart or an old shopping center, because the location isn't as important as the environment we can create inside. Because the goal of being there isn't just to drop your bags and then go walk around. The goal of being there is to help create part of this larger, kind of centralized environment. And, it's being able to offer some freedom to places where you don't necessarily have to do the same kind of mainstream rules of society. But at the same time, in order to get you to that point and that opportunity, we do need to get the properties, set up. We do need to make sure they aren't dangerous for the people who then come there, and hopefully, can be a part of this new journey. Because, as a state with 8.8 million people, there is going to be fallout, and we can't just afford to do, $200,000-$400,000 a unit, as we go. And so if we can get ahead of that and figure out how to get, kind of some volume stuff for a lower price, that's what we need to create. Because if you can figure out how to create an environment where people want to be, it's not about private rooms and this and that. People sleep in bunk beds. If they love the environment and they get up and they're excited to go, see their buddies and do, whatever activities may be. Funny, right? But yeah, and so, other things like repurposing would be like, markets, just trying to find ways to just kind of like get people going. Because it's not about creating this Class A office space. And Class A office space is going to have its own problems downtown, because when people pay this much for buildings and then the valuations tick back some, the rent they need is going to leave a lot of vacancies in the downtowns. And so, okay, we get that model. And so can we look at it and see something else where maybe we bring together our own kind of entry-level markets? Maybe they're just designed for, little bubbles that people can go that just escape reality. And, how is this done? I don't necessarily know, but I know that, people are going to need this going forward, because the pressures of society are just going to get harder and harder. And then as that happens, escapism tends to take on more of a premium. I mean, right now it's just sitting down watching a basketball game on TV. But when you understand the escapism of the situation, it's like those guys are making however many millions of dollars because of revenue share. And revenue share has to do with because of, these ads were paid for, because that's the actual market for it. How that money's chopped up and paid out is a very different equation. But just the fact that there's so many dollars tied to that escapism is, it's kind of fascinating. And that also tells you, there's going to be a lot of dollars in the future in whatever other direction is set up. I can envision places where people live there and just kind of bunk there, and then they just tap into the metaverse. And they just kind of tune in every day. They come out to sleep and eat, and, then they go back inside. And I think that's going to be a reality in some of these places. It's not right, it's not wrong. It's going to be shaped, by us. And if people want to be there, they're going to find a way to be there. And I think it's important that we can offer some positive structure around what that journey looks like. Because, a lot of times escapism is like a drug. And drugs are a form of escapism too. But like, when you talk about like tapping into metaverses and you talk about tapping into, technology is going to take on different forms in the future, from wearables to, actual, embedded technology in bodies. And kind of how we regulate it and how we look at it is going to be, you almost can't even comment on it this far out. You just have to understand that it's coming. And so, we want to make sure that, the right people are writing the bills, that, they aren't getting obscured in their views of what's important. And, anything we do, from, helping people, homeless folks, to helping businesses, to, even, what would you call it? Like a boarding house with a shuttle service. Because, hey, if people are coming here and they're coming here and they're coming here, and we can't stop it, so we got to solve it. And maybe there are some of these places that are, X amount of minutes outside of town, and then, we can shuttle people into town, where they work or where they can pick up other transportation. Hey, we need solutions. Because there's not just going to be new buildings downtown. And if there are new buildings downtown, the cost of them is going to be so intense that we aren't going to be able to offer the solution realistically. We want the real estate downtown in the highest demand area to have as few restrictions on it as possible. And then as we get out of that core, then we want to be able to restrict some properties so that they can service these areas. When we get into the high dollar, high concentration, high demand real estate, and we start putting restrictions on it, that's when you start to lose the market a bit. And, we've lost the market a bit. And so, we need to kind of come back to best practices. And we have so much data and there's so much information out there that I think now we can look at it in a way that we've never been able to before. But, you can have all these dreams, but if we can't get the property to change into what we need for the next layer of engagement, then we're not even in the game. Then we're just talking about what it would be. So we need to figure out how to convert these properties. And builders don't do it as a hobby, builder developers. They're willing to do a project to help. They love tax credits, because, when they have a hit, it's a hit. And, if they can figure out how to better kind of offset some of that, then everybody wins. And so, we're not here to punish people. We're here to, incentivize and promote and this kind of stuff, because, people are good and people are decent. But, it's hard when you're just getting jammed into places you don't fit, and just, people want to be where they feel like they have purpose and where they provide value, and they make the environment better for their presence. And so even if every situation isn't, the mainstream, which is, $40,000 a year and, whatever it costs to survive in the world, we just need to keep building, and we need to keep creating, and we need to not be ashamed to fail. And just, if we can create some of these pockets that are maybe a couple hundred or a couple thousand people, and then we find out that they're good solutions, these are things that then we can implement on a wider spectrum within the state. Because as time goes on and as, appetites change, you're going to find that there are big stores and big pieces of real estate available, but it's going to be in places that aren't on the surface desirable. So that's kind of our job in these programs, is kind of coming through and understanding not only what can be used and where it's going, but like what physical properties can be reshaped, and how can we do it in a manner that keeps our numbers so much lower than new construction. So on that note, we are going to wrap up issue 30. So thank you kindly for joining us, and please remember to like and share if you are enjoying the Republican content.